When most people picture someone who looks like they have an eating disorder, they picture a young, white, cisgender female who's visibly underweight and typically by default is cisgender, heterosexual, and able-bodied. This does account for a lot of people with eating disorders, but it's far from the majority. Anorexia nervosa can affect anyone. It affects people across identities, including gender, race, age, body size, and socioeconomic status. Because of this false stereotype, a lot of people with eating disorders go undiagnosed. They can't even imagine that they could have a problem because they don't look like what they think eating disorders look like. This goes for doctors and teachers and parents too. They don't always know what to look for. The good news is full recovery from an eating disorder is entirely possible with access to the resources, opportunities, and support that you need to recover. It's really important to remember that you're not alone, that there are people who have fully recovered from anorexia. Anorexia is actually really complicated and it has a lot of different underlying causes for different people. So you can't necessarily assume the why behind anorexia for every single person that is diagnosed with it. One thing we do know is that for many people, it is a brain-based illness, and in a lot of cases, it's actually genetic. There are a lot of other co-occurring diagnoses that exacerbate someone's predisposition to an eating disorder. And what that means is essentially you may have a tendency towards anorexia nervosa, but then there's an exaggerating or triggering event that actually onsets the eating disorder or kicks it off. And then the eating disorder actually becomes a way to cope with the other diagnoses or the distress in your life. A lot of people with anorexia are in a lot of denial about how serious the illness is until it gets so severe that they need to be hospitalized. It's really important that people get help and get spoken to before it gets to that point. If you find yourself feeling really afraid of certain foods or eliminating whole swaths of foods in your diet, you may be on a slippery slope towards anorexia. I know it might feel like your restriction or your control over your food is one of the only things that makes you feel safe, but it's really important that you let go of that belief so that you might thrive and have connection with the people that you care about. Treatment for anorexia is available. It's almost always covered by insurance. For a lot of people, this includes professional support. That might mean medical providers, therapists, dietitians, or a higher level of care like residential or inpatient. For others, it might simply mean really good social support from family members, friends, and other people with eating disorders who understand the struggles that come with eating disorders. A big part of recovering from an eating disorder is understanding diet culture and learning how to divest from diet culture. There's a multi-billion-dollar industry that's very invested in people being preoccupied with losing weight. And once you understand that there are a lot of people profiting off of your bad body image days, it's a lot easier to essentially reject it and say, I simply don't want to be a part of that. I'm not willing to hurt myself in favor of this culture that's telling me there's something wrong with my body. That can take some time because diet culture is the water that we're all swimming in, but it's a huge part of eating disorder healing. If you're struggling with anorexia, it can feel really scary and you can be terrified to tell someone, but it's really important that you do. Talk to a friend, talk to a trusted adult. You can also call a helpline. A number of eating disorder nonprofits have helplines, like ANID and the Alliance for Eating Disorders. There are people who understand what you're going through and you don't have to do it alone. Once you bring your eating disorder out of hiding and you talk about it with someone, it can feel a little exposing and it can be a little bit stressful, but it's absolutely worth it. You can learn new ways of coping with distress, trying to figure out how to feel better when you're really anxious, stressed, overwhelmed, or in need of some kind of control or experiencing triggers related to trauma. Distress tolerance is tricky, but it's actually a lifelong skill that will make your entire life a lot better. Most important thing with eating disorder healing is that you're patient with yourself. And no matter how long it takes, it'll be worth it.